Hi guys, we're back again today. This is our third video for this week. To finish up this kind of session we got going on here, this set of notes, we are looking today at the very final part of section 5.4. We kind of broke this into 3 days worth, not to overwhelm you. So for today, we are looking at using both types of division, both synthetic and long division from the past 2 videos. And we're also using that, the directions now are going to tell us to use division. So we have to decide which division we're going to use and the given factor to completely factor the polynomial. So I want to make sure you're recognizing the directions say to completely factor. It does not say to solve, which is what most students, they get excited and they just keep going and they solve. The directions say to factor. Okay, so the problem we're looking at, we have x cubed minus 3x squared minus 10x plus 24. So they want us to completely factor that. Now, right now, some of you are probably like, so it's 4 terms. Why don't we just do factor by grouping? Well, let me show you why we can't just do factor by grouping. So if we tried, we'll go ahead and try it. So you would have done 2 sets of parentheses. If you're taking notes at home, don't write this down. Just watch me as I try this. All right, you take out a GCF. So the first set, you could take out an x squared. You'd be left with x minus 3. Second set, you could take out a negative 2, and you'd be left with 5x minus 12. Does anybody see a problem why we can't do factor by grouping? Because the very next step is supposed to be what's the common factor? And they're not common, which means we can't factor this. There is no method of factoring that we know that's actually going to be able to factor it. So what we do instead, again, this is baby steps into our next section, 5.5, 5.6. We're going to kind of throw those together, and we'll look at that next week. But what happens is we're going to give you one of the factors. Okay, this will factor. If my directions for you on today's notes, in homework, on a quiz is, if the directions are to completely factor, I promise you it will factor. I'm not giving you something as a trick that doesn't actually work. It will. Okay, so keeping that in mind, if we know it will factor, that means what should you get for a remainder when you divide? You should get 0 for a remainder. So if you're working through and you don't get 0 for a remainder, you did something wrong, okay? So let's go ahead and take a jump at this. So we need to decide, do we need to use, it just says division, long division or synthetic? Obviously synthetic is faster, so that's going to be my go-to, but we know it doesn't work on everything. Now this one asks us to divide by x minus 2. That will work with synthetic, right? It's just x, right? It has to be x and then plus or minus some number. So that is in that form, so we know that we can use synthetic. So if you solved, we know x would equal 2. So setting up our synthetic division, again, double checking, I have an x cubed, x squared, x to the first, constant, so there's nothing missing. So I'm going to put in my coefficients, 1, negative 3, negative 10, and a positive 24. I'm going to use my x equals 2 for what I'm dividing by. We drop down the first one, and then we start. Multiply on the angles, straight up and down we add. So 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Multiply 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Add negative 10 and negative 2 make negative 12. Multiply 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. And then when we add, we get 0. This is your remainder. Remember, we should get a 0 for remainder because I told you that is a factor. So if you work through this and you don't get 0, you messed up somewhere. All right, putting back in our x's, this one started x cubed, we factored out an x, so we're down to an x squared, minus 1x, minus 12. It asked us to completely factor, so finish factoring. This is now 3 terms with an x squared. That's our regular old factoring. We set up 2 sets of parentheses. My last one is negative, so my signs are opposite. Options for A is just x and x. Options for C, we can go 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And in this case, it's going to be a positive 3 and a negative 4. That'll give us the negative 1 in the middle. And this again is where a lot of people are like, I'm done. Well, if this was your final answer, how is that ever going to get you back to the beginning? You have to remember you had a term that was given to you. So don't forget to also write down that given term. So fully factored is x plus 3, x minus 4, and x minus 2. If you would multiply all of that back together, you would in fact go right back to where you started. So we can factor it. It's just our methods at this point where we know factor by grouping actually didn't work. So since that didn't work, we needed another option. Them giving us one of the factors in this case, we were able to divide it out and then we could factor all the way. All right, let's try another one. So use division. I need to decide long division or synthetic and the given factor to completely factor, not solve, the polynomial function. So if you look, this problem has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. Well, we've never factored 5 terms. 4 is the most we've ever factored. So unless they give me something, I don't know how to factor that. But thankfully, we were given 2x squared plus 1. Can I use synthetic division? Is it just x plus or minus a number? And the answer is no, I cannot. We are going to have to use long division, right? Because it's an x squared and there's a number in front. All right, so we're going to set up our long division. So we have 2x to the 4th minus 2x cubed minus 11x squared minus x minus 6 divided by 2x squared plus 1. All right, so here we go. Remember, look at the first ones. What do you multiply 2x squared to get 2x to the 4th? Well, I need another x squared. And then we distribute. We get 2x to the 4th plus x squared. And then we, don't forget, change your signs. That's where it's different than synthetic. This cancels, and then be very careful. Your like terms did not line up. Okay, so we're going to have negative 2x cubed. My like terms give me negative 12x squared. Bring down the rest of the problem, and the process starts again. What do you multiply 2x squared to get negative 2x cubed? Well, I need a negative, and I need another x. So we distribute. Negative x times 2x squared is negative 2x cubed. Negative x times 1 is negative x. And then we have to change your signs. That cancels. Again, be very careful. Your like terms are not lined up. So we have a negative 12x squared. My like terms actually cancel out. And then we have a minus 6. All right, start again. What do you multiply 2x squared to get negative 12x squared? Well, I need to multiply by negative 6. So negative 6 times 2x squared is negative 12x squared. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. Then we have to change our signs, which then allows both of those to cancel out. All right, so we ended up with, go ahead and just rewrite that down here. We have x squared minus x minus 6. So great, it worked. Divided nicely, no remainder, but the direction said to completely factor. So I had to keep going. That's my regular standard factoring. So I set up my parentheses. Last one's negative, 1 plus, 1 minus. Options for A is just x and x. Options for C, we have 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. It's going to be a positive 2 and a negative 3. So that is factored there. Don't forget the given, right? It also comes down. So it comes down and we have 2x squared plus 1. So all three together is what it would take to multiply back together to get that original problem of 5 terms way in the very beginning. Okay? All right. Doing good? Only 4 examples for today. All right, so next one here. Given 1, 0, write the polynomial in factored form using division. So in this case, instead of giving us a factor, they gave us a 0, or they gave us an answer. So if I have x equals -4, where did that come from? Thinking about in terms of a factor. Well, that means that came from x plus 4, right? That's what you would solve in order to get -4 as an answer. All right, just doing the opposite again to kind of put it back into the factor. All right, so there just gave us the part that I need to divide by. If I know that, I can use synthetic division. So let's set it up. Again, double check. I have an x cubed, an x squared, x to the first, constant. Great, nothing's missing, no zeros to kind of hiding out in there. We'll put in our coefficients. We have a 3, 13, 2, -8. And they gave us the answer x equals -4, so that's what we divide by. Drop the first one down. We multiply. -4 times 3 is -12. And then we add 13 and -12 make 1. Multiply 4 times 1. Sorry, -4 times 1, which is -4. And then we add 2 and -4 is -2. Multiply -4 times -2 is +8, and then add, and we get 0, which is good because there should not be a remainder. So check, that's good. Plugging our x's back in, this was x cubed, so we know it drops by 1. This is x squared. That's plus 1x minus 2. All right, and it said I have to write it in fully factored form, so we need to keep factoring. So setting up your parentheses, my last one's negative, so I need 1 plus and 1 minus. All right, options for A is going to be a 3x and a 1x. Options for C is 1 and 2. I'm going to go 2 and 1. And it appears my signs are backwards, so I'm going to flip that one to a plus, which means that one should have been my minus, right? Because if you check your inside-outside, that's -2x, and that's a +3x, so that makes a +1x. So I know my signs are good now. And don't forget the given, right? They gave us the x equals -4, but I know that came from the factor x plus 4. All right, fully factored form, there we be. All right, last problem. Holy smokes, we have an x to the 6th. Whew. So just kind of thinking back, how many answers, if we were to solve? Directions just say factored form, so I'm not solving. But if I were to solve, this problem would have 6 answers. Okay, 6. All right, let's see if we can tackle this. So they gave us this for a factor. Which can I use synthetic division? Synthetic has to be x plus or minus a number. I have an x squared plus a number. So I have to do long division, unfortunately, because of the x squared. All right, so let's go ahead and set it up. We have an x to the 6th minus 5x to the 4th minus 2x squared plus 24. And we are dividing by x squared plus 2. All right, so what do you multiply x squared to get x to the 6th? We need an x to the 4th. And we distribute, and we get x to the 6th plus 2x to the 4th. Don't forget to change your signs. So that will cancel. That's going to give me -7x to the 4th. Bring down everything else, and the process starts over. What do you multiply x squared to get -7x to the 4th? Well, I would need a -7x squared. So we distribute, and we get negative 7x to the fourth. Distribute here gives me negative 14x squared. Then we have to change our signs. So that will cancel. That's going to give me a positive 12x squared and plus 24. All right, starting again. What do you multiply x squared to get 12x squared? Well, I'd have to multiply by 12. Distribute, we get 12x squared. Distribute, we get 24. And then we know we have to change our signs. So that cancels, and so does that. And again, since I gave you one of the factors, it's not a trick, you should get 0 for a remainder. All right, now the directions want factored form, fully factored. So the answer I got, x to the fourth minus 7x squared plus 12, needs to be factored further. Well, looking at that, I see I have an x to the fourth. That means this problem is quartic. So we factor quartics just like we factor quadratics. Last one is positive. So they're either both plus or both minus. In this case, they're both minus. Options for A would be x squared and x squared. Options for C, we have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, or 3 and 4. In this case is 3 and 4. So we factored. But again, don't forget we do have the given that we need, which is x squared plus 2. And that's where a lot of people will stop. Does anybody see that I could actually factor further? My favorite is sitting right there in the middle. Difference of squares, right? That would factor to x plus 2 and x minus 2. You gotta look for those things. They pop up all over. Remember when we talked about factoring quartics and they kind of popped up all the time? You gotta look for those. So I factored that one further. I still have the x squared minus 3. He just kind of hangs around, as does the given, the x squared plus 2. Now, those two don't factor further because one's a 2 with a plus sign and one's a 3, so they're not perfect squares. So this is how that final factored answer should look. All right, guys, that is all the examples I have for you today. Notice how this last one ended up being a quartic problem that we factored. So as you're working through these, you could end up with 4 terms where you'd have to do grouping. You could end up with sum and difference of cubes where you have x cubed plus or minus a perfect cubed number, right? So you have to use that SOAP pattern that we've learned. All right, they could be just regular old quadratics like numerous of these problems were. So all the types of factoring are all fair game. So you need to be able to look at what you have, recognize it, and then factor it further. Okay? So give it a shot. Try the practice homework. Don't forget the given. Most people forget to bring that down. And let me know if you have any questions. All right? Hopefully you guys are doing okay. I haven't heard from a whole lot of you. But if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right? Okay, guys. We're bringing to the end of the week here. So hopefully as you watch this, you're doing okay. And get everything done by Sunday night by 11:45, okay? And those quizzes, they shut down Sunday night 11:45. So make sure you get on it. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great day.